So, we've learned about eat, sleep, play. Now it's eat, play, read. Our Adam Miller shows us a comic book that's being used to teach kids to eat healthier.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, childhood obesity is prevalent in 18.5% of children and adolescents aged 2 to 19 years old. That's 13.7 million people. And Professor May May Leung of Hunter College's School of Urban Public Health is taking a creative approach to fighting obesity in kids.
I was at a bookstore studying one day, and I took a break and walked around the bookstore and came across all these kids sitting on the floor completely engaged when I turned this aisle and saw all these kids engaged in books. And I thought, this is a very unusual sight. So I was like, what was going on? And it turns out they were in the manga aisle, in the comic book aisle. And I thought there was something to explore there.
So, Professor Leung, inspired by the teens in the bookstore, developed a manga-based comic book aimed at teaching kids to eat healthier.
Studies show that eating apples can lower cholesterol levels, but it would be imprudent to neglect seeing a doctor at least once a year simply because of that.
Manga comics, the characters are actually drawn in a more simplified way, as opposed to with Marvel and DC comics, the characters are drawn with a bit more detail. And with that difference, what research has found is that people are more likely to identify and relate to the simplified drawn characters. And so therefore, readers are more likely to identify with the characters, and they kind of mask themselves and put themselves into the story and immerse themselves into the narrative. Research has shown that actually people tend to be more persuaded by the messages in the stories when they're more immersed or transported.
But kids don't read like they used to. So in order to have the most impact, she had to put the comics where the kids' eyes are, on their phones and tablets.
The comic, we developed it to be a 6-chapter comic with interactive features. The title is Game On. It is about a seemingly average high school student named Justin who loves video games, and he ends up discovering he has a destiny to be able to save the world from this evil empire that has limited all access to healthy foods, to fruits and vegetables, and to water.
But there's a tiny voice telling me, be brave, stand tall, be a hero.
In order to save his world, he actually gets transported into this other world, this basically parallel universe, which looks like an apocalyptic New York City. In that world, he has to fight the evil empire.
But can an interactive comic like Game On actually change eating habits? Well, May May and her group conducted a study to test just that.
Who are you?
What we found is that at the end of the intervention, that the children who received the comic, they reported an improvement in fruit and vegetable intake. Compared to the control group. They also reported a decrease in sugar intake and an increase in water consumption.
And as Professor Leung and her colleagues continue to test and improve Game On, she's hopeful that someday soon, comic books will be used in schools and clinics as a superhero in the fight to knock out childhood obesity. I'm Adam Miller for Simply Science.